Hello, I'm TJ Cox, and today on Channel 7 News, we will be telling about the amazing history of Rick Rescorla with Abby Straub and Jim Jones, who are survivors from 9/11 and people who witnessed Rick Rescorla and his heroics. Also joining us today will be Vince Falk, director of the Rick Rescorla Memorial.
Hello, TJ. Are there any questions you would like to ask me about Rick?
Yes, I do have some questions for you. What was Rick's childhood like?
Rick was a British boy born in Hale, Cornwall, in Great Britain on May 27, 1939. At the age of 4, he wanted to serve in the army. He thought he had a normal family with a mom, a dad, an older brother, and sister. He later found that his brother and sister were actually his mom and uncle, and his parents were his grandparents.
What a unique way to grow up.
Yes, it is.
Jim, what were some hobbies Rick had as a child?
Well, some of Rick's hobbies were wood carving, writing poetry, and crafting.
Abby, what were Rick's teenage years like?
Rick joined the British Army as a paratrooper in 1956 when he was 17 and left the British Army 4 years later in 1960.
Jim, what happened during his adulthood?
Rick immigrated to the United States in the early 1960s. He went to the University of Oklahoma for his college education before he joined the U.S. Army. He trained to join the U.S. Army at Fort Dix in New Jersey. Rick Rescorla was a clever man, but not very good at fighting. He still ended up being the leader of his group.
Rick was assigned to be Colonel Rescorla of the 7th Cavalry, in which General Armstrong Custer led during the Battle of Little Big Horn and was killed. Rick participated in the Battle of Virginia Hill during the Vietnam War, which is probably the most famous of the battles of the Vietnam War. One time, Rick accidentally jumped into an enemy trench with multiple soldiers inside. He said, "Oh, pardon me," before killing the soldiers and running. One time, a drunk private pulled a gun on Rescorla and Rick said, "Put the gun down."
Tell me a little more about his personal life, Vince.
He also got married to his first wife, Betsy Nathan, in 1972 and had 2 kids. But sadly, this marriage didn't last and they got divorced. In 1998, he got married again to his second wife, Susan Greer, who had 3 children and was divorced 3 times before.
Jim, what happened to Rick after the Vietnam War?
Well, TJ, after the Vietnam War, Rick won a Silver Star for his leadership. Soon after, Rick started to write film scripts. Rick wanted to forget his life at war. He once said, "The war was part of my life. It is not my life." After writing scripts for some time, he decided to become a security guard. He first worked for security at a bank administration institute, but didn't think it was right for him.
Abby, what did Rick do after that?
In 1985, he moved to New Jersey to be the director of security for Dean Witter, who later merged his company with Morgan Stanley.
In 1993, a truck bomb went off in the bottom of the North Tower of the World Trade Center. Rick had to evacuate the South Tower Morgan Stanley headquarters. The evacuation went poorly and Rick decided to draw out his own evacuation plan and have drills so if something like what happened that day were to happen again.
Jim, what else occurred during the bombing?
Well, after that bombing, Rick Rescorla would not accept defeat. He swore that if something like this would happen again, he would protect all the people in the building and risk his life to save them all. People who knew Rick Rescorla knew him to be a calm, clear-headed, and confident person.
He must have had lots of confidence in himself.
Yes, he did.
Jim, did Rick have an evacuation plan set?
Yes, in fact, he also had many evacuation drills every 3 months or so. All of the Morgan Stanley employees knew what to do in case of a bad situation. Rick knew there would probably be another attack after the 1993 terrorist attacks.
So, is there any information about 9/11 you could tell me?
Yes, we do have some.
Vince, what happened to Rick during the attacks of 9/11?
When the first plane hit the North Tower, everyone was in shock. The intercoms told everyone to stay calm and stay where you are. Rick pulled out his bullhorn and yelled for everyone to get out of the building.
Jim, what did Rick do when the next plane hit the tower?
He had already evacuated over half of the Morgan Stanley employees and ran back to grab more people. To keep people calm, he sang the song from his hometown called Men of Harlech.
Wow, very interesting. Abby, what was it like being involved in 9/11?
It was the worst experience a person could ever have. Nobody was trying to help us out until Rick started calling through his megaphone to evacuate. After I got out of the building, I heard that only 13 out of 2,700 Morgan Stanley employees didn't get out, but the rest were safe. Rick was able to get almost every single person out. I saw him talking on his phone while I was evacuating. It seemed that he was talking to his wife. He said to her these words, "Stop crying. I have to get these people to safety. If something should happen to me, I want you to know I've never been happier. You made my life."
Wow, very interesting. Jim, what was it like when the building collapsed?
It was horrifying. When I was running out the building, I heard Rick telling all the people to evacuate. When I got out the building, I watched Rick run back into the World Trade Center with the firemen. That was the last time anyone saw him. None of the policemen held him back from going back into the building.
Vince, can you tell us some interesting facts about Rick?
After 9/11, Rick's daughter, Kimberly Rescorla, told one of our reporters that Rick was always a film buff, history buff, and poetry buff.
Rick's son, Trevor Rescorla, said that Rick always wanted to be joyful. When they were boxing, Rick always cheated, but when Trevor was able to bring him down, there would always be a small celebration.
As you can see, Rick Rescorla was definitely an amazing man. Thank you for watching Channel 7 News. Bye.
Bye.